Hello, it's Scott again, back for some more Kerbal Space Adventures. If you recall, the last time we built a ginormous rocket and sent it into the sun. Well, this week I'm going to go all sciencey on you and demonstrate that you didn't actually need such a big rocket to go into the sun. So here we are with our rocket. Unlike the previous one, it only has 2 stages, so it has a lot less delta V. However, it turns out that we don't need as much as our previous mission because we are going to use something called science to get us all the way there. Now, so far it's a standard launch profile. You're putting this into an eastwards orbit and then circularizing everything. The boosters will of course drop back to the planet nicely, leaving no debris. And then once we're circularized, we wait until we're roughly on the dark side of the moon before we start burning. We are going to use the copious fuel left in this upper stage to put ourselves onto an escape trajectory, which will be aligned directly along the orbit of the planet. Now, the escape velocity at this altitude is about 3.1 kilometers per second. That's when the spacecraft goes onto an elliptical and then a hyperbolic orbit. And then as we build speed beyond that, the wings of the hyperbolic orbit get wider and wider. So in this case, I just kind of try to line up my exit trajectory to be perfectly aligned with the planetary orbit, which is actually kind of hard because as you zoom in, you lose the planetary orbit, and as you zoom out, you lose the spacecraft orbit. But in the end, I settle for just under 3.5 kilometers per second escape velocity from the planet. And now it's time to time accelerate. And so after about 2 weeks of voyaging, we finally leave the sphere of influence of Kerbal and we are in a solar orbit. Now, I did say we were going to the sun, but as you can see from this orbit, it goes nowhere near it. In fact, all that extra speed I've added has pushed the aphelion further away from the sun. But it's not nearly far enough away from the sun for this mission profile, so we line up along our orbital vector and thrust away to bring our aphelion even higher still. Now, in my previous video, somebody had commented that Mechanical Jeb was a mod, and that somehow took away from my achievement of descending onto the sun. So I left it off here, which means I have to go back to the map screen to figure out what my aphelion's going to be. In the end, we bring the orbital speed up to around 12.2 kilometers per second, and our aphelion is about 84 million kilometers. And again, it's now time to time accelerate. And this is really one of those times that I do want a mod for the game, because it'll only let you time accelerate at 10,000 times normal speed. And at 10,000 times normal speed, it takes about an hour to get out to the aphelion position. Of course, as we travel out further away from the sun, our kinetic energy drops and is converted into potential energy. And after about a year of simulated travel, the velocity has now dropped down to 2 kilometers per second. And now it is time to perform the sundive maneuver. We have about 1.7 tanks of fuel left, which is more than enough to kill that 2 kilometers per second of orbital velocity. And as you can see, as we slow down, our orbit gets thinner and thinner and our perihelion drops. In fact, I overcompensate a little and end up with an orbit that goes inside the sun, but with a bit of correction, we get it back to about 2,000 meters above the surface. The final orbital velocity is about 150 meters per second. And you see, that's the orbital magic. By pushing ourselves up into a higher orbit, the deceleration needed to get our perihelion down drops. In essence, we have traded mission time for fuel efficiency. Now, the theoretical lower limit for this is that if you can hit the escape velocity, then you can reach any point in the solar system, eventually. The direct sundive using the really big rocket only took about 20 days. This one is going to take almost 2 years. But as you can see, we are still afflicted by problems with the physics engine. And as we drop down to below 20,000 kilometers, we pick up some serious spin. Before we even reach 10,000 kilometers, the engine falls off, spins away all on its own. And at about 5,000 kilometers up, the rest of the spacecraft flies apart. It's kind of cool to watch all the bits smash into the surface of the sun. Even the parachute gets destroyed, and then the capsule dies. Apparently, despite the parachute still being attached to the capsule, it manages to crash into the sun a whole 4 seconds before the capsule itself. So I'd advise that if you want to go to the sun, make your orbit above 20,000 kilometers. That seems to be about the limit. You cannot control your spaceship at this altitude, but it doesn't appear to blow up. And so there we are, the most efficient way to get to the sun if you have plenty of time on your hands. See you next time.